Been talking about signs in the times and having an eye to see. And we're going to switch gears a little bit, though we're going to touch on a few things in that series. This week, as Jennifer said, really is a very, very important week. And how did it become so important to us? It was it was back in 2020, and I had went to a pastor that we were attending a church in Morristown, and I had asked him, how do I access some of these deeper things? And one of the things he said was, for him personally, it was just to start understanding the Hebrew Jesus. And so that sent me on a quest to unpack Hebrew. Really because the American Jesus that I had grew up with and knew my whole life, my family had drugged me to church, and um, so I felt like I knew that culture, that um, celebrations, anything to do with our normal church life. But I was wanting to understand the Hebrew Jesus, the what were their traditions? What was his day-to-day life like? What were some of the things in his culture that we just don't experience here in this time, and in the 21st century, and being in a completely different culture in America. And so it was really just something simple of learning some new words, a few phrases, looking at some things. And I started looking at the holidays because in Genesis 1:14, he said, and we talked about this last week, that I give you the stars for signs and seasons and appointed times. Well, what are them appointed times? Them are God appointed times. Them aren't Hebrew or Israel tradition. Them are times that God set forth. And he talked about that in the book of Numbers, in detail of what the Jewish holidays are to look like. So what's the correlation between them and us now? I feel it has to do everything because as we were talking about last week, this generation that we're in, we can see things that the prophets then could not see. We have computers, we have mathematics, so we can determine exactly where the sun, moon, and stars are going to be. So we can see things like the Revelation 12 sign. So where does that come to? It comes to these special days, and you have to have an eye to see it. And it really wasn't until I can't remember what that was, but it was in 2020, and it was Rosh Hashanah. They had a they had a really big, huge Washington D.C. thing that they were doing. It was all over the news, and we just thought we would just sit down and watch it and partake and see what it was about and what they did. And in that moment, it was one of our greatest prophetic acts that we could do because, and I do believe in prophetic acts. We have birthday parties. You go to celebrate your birthday. That's a prophetic act, whether, it's a celebration of your birthday. So we celebrate Christmas because it's a prophetic act of St. Nicholas, and, which all of them are Christian type holidays. But the Jewish holidays are more significant, and them prophetic acts of us just praising, even though we weren't Jewish, didn't understand it. We thought, let's just get in the moment. Let's just pray this out, and let's just worship and celebrate the holiday that it is. It's Rosh Hashanah. It's the Jewish New Year. It's the head of the year. It's when God says, "Hey, we're going to celebrate," but it's also a warning. In that you blow that shofar because in that it's a warning to repent. And it's telling the world, hey, you got to repent. And they blow the shofar, I think, 100 times. And on the last one, it's the longest blow of all, and it's called the last trump. What does that have to do with the conversation of the end times? I believe it has everything. Now, I don't know if it's this Rosh Hashanah or next year's Rosh Hashanah or 35 years from now Rosh Hashanah, but I do believe that the Lord will come back on that holiday. And here's why I believe that. It's one, because Passover was 2,000 years ago, and we had Passover this past spring. Jesus' death happened on Passover, and his burial, and that was on unleavened bread. And then he was resurrected on first fruits. So these are three of the first Jewish holidays. They're very, very important. And things happened exactly as they was prophesied on these special days. So the next one that's in line for it to happen would be the rapture of the church. And what is the next holiday, after Pentecost? Rosh Hashanah. Now, there's a few small ones in between, but these are the big ones. And this year, Rosh Hashanah falls this coming week. It's the 2nd through the 4th. How does that correlate to the end times? No one knows the day or the hour. So what's significant about this holiday? Well, it's because no one knows exactly when it starts. There's 2 watchmen that has to go up on the hilltop, and they're watching for a little sliver of the moon. So they're looking for that sign that we were talking about. They're looking for that sign. And when they see that little sliver, and then the second person confirms that, then they announce and they blow the horn. And that starts a 2-day celebration. Now, if you think about that in the world scheme of things, then that 2-day celebration in Jerusalem, is 48 hours. But if you span that across the globe, that really could be in a 4-day window because the time zones and things are shifting. So, does anyone know the hour that the Lord's going to come? No, and we're not ever going to know that moment because he clearly says. But he also says, I'm going to give you signs to look for. I'm going to give you seasons to be watchful for. And this year, it's just really special because God gave me something when I was in Texas, and I drew it down in the journal, and it was very specific to this set of holidays. Now, I'm hopeful that the Lord comes back this week for all of us. But if he don't come back this week, then I'm still going to be watching next week and the following week, because though I believe that it's going to be on an appointed day by God that he will return, I also don't know when that's going to be. But I'm going to stay vigilant. I'm always going to be watching. And, this year I would just encourage you guys to explore some things that you may not know, and let the Lord reveal some things that we're hidden to you, because you may get some revelation from the prophetic act of just experiencing the Jewish holidays.